Hello people, I'm D Scorpion. It's been about a hot minute since I last talked about Darklands. And while last time I mentioned a personal rules rewrite and just wanting to discuss the rules in general, it's becoming too much, and a single well-trimmed video is not enough to discuss it. I gotta find other ways to talk about it. So in the meantime, I thought I would instead talk about the various STL 3D printing bundles that Mierce has been selling for the last year now. Mind you, none of this is going to be based off of gameplay or rules reasons. I still barely understand the rules. This will mostly be coming down to the kindreds that have been chosen, how well they've been supported over the years, and overall just kind of what they bring forward. Most of this is just going to be biased and subjective, and so more or less just treat it as like a preview of what you're kind of being offered in terms of 3D printable files you can buy. And to start off, we have the Norse. From a variety of heroes that have both good variation and different head options, to basic foot infantry with a variety of weapon options you can give them. It's already a pretty solid bundle, if it were not for the fact that it also just, for the rest of it, included birds. Like, they have a squadron of birds that you can get, and then their big, more centerpiece model for the mythical side of the game is a giant bird. Now, I don't want to be coming out and saying that if you like this concept, that's fine. The wife of my local game store owner, I remember talking to a while back, and she would say, like, prefer Sylvaneth over Seraphon because how terrifying would it be for trees to come to life and kick your ass? Fair enough. You can imagine a similar concept with a bird. In fact, you can probably imagine that in real life already. And on top of that, you can also get a separate purchase of the Ill King Ruler riding a giant hippogriff, which is nice, but that is a separate purchase outside the bundle. And on top of that, compared to the other bundles and kindreds that are available, the birds just feel a little lackluster in comparison. I will say, however, that because this is kind of the lowest on the list, at least in my opinion, it can really only go up from here. So we'll get stuff like, the Raven Men. Up next, we basically just have Atlantis, and this is only just the only thing that you can purchase. No separate side purchases available, which I think is fine because you mostly kind of get what you want. You get a very Greek-themed army, you get some good variety of heroes, you get some regular, like, foot colossi, and you have the giant colossi as a centerpiece. It's overall solid all around. Painting the colossi is not going to be that hard of just bronze plus verdigris. They're decent. The Banti are next, and I'm just also going to throw in the few inferni models that were recently released because that's all that was released for them, and they also go hand in hand in lore. I do like the demons. They are models that I have looked at, and considering one is probably one of the more expensive models that you can buy from Mierce normally, is kind of a good deal in getting an STL format now. And the actual bundle itself for the Banti is, like, I like it. You get, beast handlers with hyenas, you got giant scorpions, you got like a super double stinger scorpion, which is a good eye catcher, some very appropriate medieval Roman soldiers that kind of breaks away from that traditional look that I think many of us still think happened throughout the whole entire Roman era. And of course, a demon sorcerer. You can't go wrong with that. My only complaint, and while I said I wasn't going to bring up the rules on this, is that I'm not entirely sure if, like, you were to purchase this for rules, how, like, binding and the Beastmaster works, because my head's scrambling on how bind distance between those two works, and it's a nightmare. The talk on rules will be coming. Following up with this is the Brythoniad with the Walker, these weird dragon chicken men, and Brythoniad were the first kindreds I was looking at simply because dragons, and I'm not going to lie, it is nice that they got support, but the Walker are just kind of that side of the faction I don't really personally care for, kinda? They are interesting, and you got this giant wyvern alongside them, but I don't know. To me personally, all of it just kind of looks samey, of just small chicken man, slightly larger chicken man, more bestial chicken man, and yeah. The only upside to this is that the separate model that you can buy is their named King Lord on a giant dragon, and is probably one of the most expensive models that you could buy physically. This is a really good deal, and why it gets this placement for me. And before we get into our double release section, we now round off with the Easons, with a honestly pretty good bundle. You get your basic foot infantry with, both options of weapons. You got your mounted horse cavalry infantry. You got some pretty good heroes designs. You get a good old Bone Hulk, which I also bought physically beforehand in the special bundle, and it also looks really good. And the separate purchase of getting like this kill drone on either a Manticore or a Chimera is also a really good deal. There's a lot going on here, and with December coming up soon, they're going to be getting yet another bundle, so they're also in pretty good shape. I really like the Eason aesthetic, and I think you can find a good variety of uses for it, even outside of Darklands. Now getting into the kindreds that have gotten the most support, we will start with number 3 of the Englekin of mostly Mercia. They're overall just the poster child of the game, let's be real. They're also, it's kind of like the main faction the company's named after, so it's not really that surprising that they get a lot of focus. And granted, I'm not going to lie, werewolves are cool. The first bundle almost being like full werewolf infantry with like a super mega wolf, pretty good start. Second bundle, you do get basic human infantry, which is also very nice, and you also get various bits to kind of represent the other realms if you want, but at the same time, you also just kind of get slightly larger werewolves. And the extra bits, while nice, don't really matter too much if you aren't getting other models to like properly represent them outside of buying from the store, which is not a bad thing, and I do also recommend that, but if you're just looking for STL files, like this kind of feels a little weird. Still, they do have 2 bundles there, it's very well supported, and if you do like werewolves, then hey, this is right up your alley. Coming in at number 2 are the Jutes, the very first kindred to actually get the bundle released, that have also somewhat recently finished one of their campaigns, and currently has another campaign going on, which I will mention very briefly. I personally really like the Jutes. This was actually the first bundle that I took some of the miniatures and actually test printed them, and they came out pretty well for the most part. I'm actually satisfied with this. And the selection that you do have with them, while yes, is all very much undead, you at least know what you're getting. And plus, who doesn't want like a giant undead giant with like a howdah on his back? Or even just with a giant scythe for that matter. And as I mentioned, a third campaign currently is going on right now to actually expand it even further, but this time in the realm of terrain, which I think is cool. But this is where I kind of have to stop and kind of complain about it because, first off, while I do also want to support the campaign, and I still plan on to, I will say right now that the current aesthetic of Darklands is very set in like being grounded with fantasy elements. It's not like super high fantasy. The terrain being presented in this campaign, however, is very much like more like something you would see out of Age of Sigmar, and some of the stretch goals, which I do like, again, still don't really feel like it fits the aesthetic of what the game, or better yet, the setting wants. On top of that, while you are very straightforward in just getting the quote undead faction, the Jutes are still also a lot more. They do still have human units that they need to get around to. There also are more like Beetlemen and Batman and like giant spiders that are a part of the kindred that I really wish could be brought forward more into future bundles moving forward if the Jutes get any more attention. Which finally brings us to the last kindred, which is probably my main one going forward at the moment, the Kathones. They do have 2 current bundles right now, and both of them I think are pretty good since they start representing the different sides of the kindred as a whole. You have the Gorgons with a whole bunch of snake ladies, along with actually bringing forth like the big old Scylla centerpiece model. You have these giant like gorger worm things that can reference like Dune and whatnot. Then plus their other bundle of the Savras, which is vastly large because you just have hordes of infantry of salamanders. You have the giant war turtle. You have flame spitting salamanders. There's just a lot of variety that you're getting right now. And moving forward from this, you can get the crocodiles, you can get more of the gorgons, you can get the hydras. There's more that you can go with moving forward, and I'm actually really excited for that. The only downside is that at the moment, it's just kind of limited because there are only so many months in the year and so much time. In fact, the only reason why the second bundle for Kathones even came out was because of a extra Kickstarter to effectively make at the same time and then kind of push out when it was all ready. And I think that kind of brings me now to my closing thoughts on the matter. While I think Mercia is making a right move and kind of pushing into like STL formats moving forward with their products, They do have a very large catalog, and they unfortunately haven't gotten to every kindred this year. There are a few outliers. As well as being a very small company, there's only so much they can do to kind of keep up with this, and now trying to expand to further territory with even now like their terrain project at the moment. While I don't think will be unsuccessful, I think with how it currently is right now is maybe lackluster for what they might want to be doing. It's why I kind of want to be bringing up this video up a bit. Even though I do have my complaints about it, I do still want to kind of push emphasis and attention towards them to try to give them support. I really do love their work. So even if you don't want to play Darklands, and I totally get it, I still highly recommend you just try and check them out. Back their current campaign on My Mini Factory to unlock those stretch goals, because even if you don't think it works well with the aesthetic for their game, it can still work for other systems like Age of Sigmar, or just be fun to have around. And I think the more support that we are able to give them, the more they're actually going to be able to get those releases out that you might want, which I think is a great thing. But yeah, those are just my thoughts on the matter. The current Kickstarter only has a few more days left before it closes, but links to that will be down below. If any of the bundles also interest you, I just highly recommend that you try picking them up. If you like any of this content, share a comment down below on what your thoughts are on all this. Maybe give this video a like, share it around, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video.